Hello and welcome to Business Today. I'm Siddharth Zarabi and I'm here at the India Today Group studio at the World Government Summit. And joining me now, another guest, David Bach, the president of IMD, one of the most well-known business schools in the world. David, thank you very much for making the time to speak with us. And I'm going to come straight to the question because, this is a gathering of government leaders from almost 4 countries. You have businessmen, you have academics like you, and of course CEOs. And that one big question, because we as a group and Business Today produce what is India's oldest and among the most credible business school surveys annually. What is the future of an MBA in the age of AI, David?
Well, look, I think the MBA remains incredibly important. It is the most global degree, the most recognized degree, in many ways the most prestigious degree, but it has remained that because it has constantly reinvented itself. One of the things that I love about management education is we don't sit still, we innovate, we're close to practice, we check in with business leaders, we update our curriculum, and so the MBA is evolving. It's very different now than it was 10 or 20 years ago, and I'm sure it's going to be different 10 years from now, but that's how we make sure that it remains relevant.
In one sentence, what is a modern MBA? How would you describe it?
Look, what I think an MBA does is it helps you solve problems, but then, and this is important, equips you with the tools that you need to implement solutions in organizations, right? So you need the analytical skills to solve problems, and you need the people skills, the understanding of organizational dynamics to drive real change.
There's a lot of change happening. The software sector seems to be getting disrupted by AI over the last few days while we were here. You've seen what has happened to the markets, especially for tech companies, software companies. And that question about will AI replace and to what extent the core principles of good management, what would you say to that?
I think it has huge potential to augment management, to bolster productivity. It will make it much easier to solve complex problems, but we still need, the human who identifies what, we're trying to achieve in an organization, what some of the parameters are. So I really do think when it comes to management, it's a tool, incredibly powerful tool. There have been previous waves of tools. I'm not going to say it's exactly like a previous one, but, we used to teach finance and accounting in a world where there are no spreadsheets, and spreadsheets made that a lot easier, right? We used to teach cases when they were only made of paper, and there was no video. And so clearly, AI is an exciting set of tools. It's changing what we teach. It's changing also how we teach.
What is the future of the case study?
I think I'm a big fan of cases, right? And of course, as you know, so much of education is you do theory, abstract, and then you have an example. The case study flips it on its head. You start with the real situation, right? Siddharth is leaving India today. He has to figure, what do you do? And you go from the specific to the general. I think AI gives us an ability to create cases faster about things that happened just a couple of days ago. It enables us also to create simulations and role plays from a case study, right? I can put a case into a LLM and I can basically say, look, create a role play from this with 5 different roles, and it'll provide, those materials for me. So I think AI can actually bring cases to life in a really exciting way.
Can AI teach us in the future?
Yeah, it's an aid in teaching. What we're really excited about is that AI enables personalized interactive learning at scale. It's like you have your own little tutor. If you don't understand something, you want an illustration, it can do that. So we're deploying AI in our executive programs, for example. We have participants from all over the world, and we see that sometimes they'll ask in their native language, in Japanese or in Arabic, they'll ask a question about something that they saw in the program, or they ask for an example or an illustration, right? So right now, it's a very potent sort of teaching assistant, if you will, but I think in the future, increasingly, people will turn to AI to actually get a first approximation to a question that they're wrestling with.
So a future management education classroom, will it have no teacher? Will it just have sort of individual streams and each student at his capability and understanding level interacting with some agent and figuring out the broad topic but in his own way?
I think it's a combination of those things. I think you still have, a professor, a teacher roaming around, but you're absolutely right. The way I'm picturing it is, small tables, maybe in groups, an agent who's part of the group, solving a problem together, the faculty roaming around, facilitating, checking in with people. Learning is a social activity, and so I think doing it in groups continues to make sense. But absolutely, I think you'll see agents become, very potent sort of extensions of faculty in the classroom.
You've trained, and your institution has trained literally hundreds and thousands of managers. So we discussed students and the classroom. Let's now look towards existing managers.
Yeah.
A manager of today, what skills in your view, David, does he or she need to, one, adapt, not just survive, and build for the future?
Yeah. Let me start with the most fundamental one, and this may seem obvious, but I don't think it is. I think the most important things that leaders and managers have to learn right now is to learn. To get into the habit of constantly learning. We used to have this model that, you do your undergraduate, maybe you do an MBA, and then effectively you were done. After that, you would read India Today and, a couple of other lesser publications to stay current, but that was it, right? And then people realize, well, maybe occasionally something new happens and you have to do a short course, and so you go back to a top business school for a program. The world is changing so fast in terms of technology, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of a new generation coming into organizations with different expectations. If leaders aren't learners, if they aren't people who embrace continuously learning, they're not going to be able to be successful. So that's the most important thing. Then, of course, we can talk about what are some of the things they need to learn right now. But I think creating an environment where people understand leadership means you got to keep learning your whole life.
Why don't you expand on that? What do they need to learn now? Because my way of summarizing what you said is you got to be a lifelong student. But what do they need to learn?
I mean, right now, of course, a lot of leaders come to us and they want to learn more about AI, not understanding the technology, but, how do you actually drive new ways of creating and capturing value? We're running programs for board members, helping them figure out what their role is and how they provide good governance. So that's one area. And that's going to continue to evolve as we get a better sense of where are the value drivers, how can you secure the ROI. So the conversation about AI is very different now than it was 18 months ago or 2 years ago in our programs. But then there are others, right? You mentioned that we're meeting at the World Government Summit, and the world is very different now than it was a few years ago. The logic of globalization has changed. Security and reliability have become a lot more important than efficiency and scale. Most leaders today have not lived and worked in a world in which politics plays such a big role. They're not trained for this. It wasn't part of their MBA curriculum, so doing a lot of work with leaders on that as well.
What is, and let's turn the attention to your institution, how is your institution, your curriculum, and your teachers responding to this very fast change?
Yeah. So we're one of the most global business schools there is. Our headquarters is in Lausanne, but we have campuses in Singapore. We have an office in Shenzhen. We have a team in Cape Town. Our faculty, 57 amazing professors. One of them is Swiss-born. So it's an incredibly global institution. That's the first thing that sets us apart. The second one is much of what we do is executive education. So we work with leaders, we work with organizations on their current issues. And so that puts us in a position to actually adapt very quickly to these changing needs. We don't have academic departments, we don't have tenure. So we're quite agile and flexible in how we're responding with new programs, new pedagogies, new content that is needed by practicing managers right now.
You spoke about your global presence, but what about India?
Yeah, well, India is incredibly important. We have amazing alums in India. The single largest group of MBA students we have at IMD in Lausanne come from India. Many of them single largest group. They're terrific students. About 20% or so of our students are from India.
20%? Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
In our program. Many of them from India, and others, Indians who we've recruited from some of the other major business hubs in Asia, here in the Middle East and Europe. They're terrific. And the ones we attract are the ones who have, already, very sharp analytical skills, and they appreciate the importance of leadership and organizational change. So India is very important. We work with leading enterprises in India. And, we're incredibly bullish on India, not just India's development, but India's place in the global economy. It's an incredibly fast-growing economy. I think a lot of European businesses are looking at India with a lot of excitement, not just in terms of new opportunities in terms of consumers as India develops, but what's happening around manufacturing, innovation. It's exciting, and we're glad to be a part of it.
And I don't know how many of our viewers realize this. You're based in Switzerland. We already have a trade deal with the EFTA countries, as they're called, and now we have one with the European Union. So pretty much all of the ground is covered. Have you also looked at the trend of foreign universities looking at India to set up campuses?
Yes, we have. We're certainly following that closely. I've had some conversations. Not making a big announcement here. I'm just telling you that we're, of course, paying attention to this. We're a very global institution. Why do these terrific Indian students come all the way to Switzerland? A country that is relatively small, half of the year is quite cold, but, is of course a super, vibrant, small economy. Well, they come in part because it's one of the most global places in the world. You have a very large number of global multinationals based there.
You can set up a campus, but you can't transfer
That's
the ethos.
That's the thing. So what people are coming to us for is that global education, that global nature. And so as we think about our geographic footprint, we're always thinking about how do we make sure we deliver that global learning experience. And so we'll watch closely what some others are doing, and we'll certainly, we're committed to finding new ways of broadening and deepening our impact in India and with India.
And Indian institutions, including India's top-rated institution, the Indian Institute of Management at Ahmedabad, is, for example, has a campus here. So that's changing. As we close this conversation, I want you to respond to two facts. The global Indian manager. Lots of them. And there are storied CEOs of very massive corporations, and then there is a middle rung who's still going up. Why is that? Is there something in your experience, since you have so many Indian students, is there something that works for an Indian student and an Indian manager in the global context, David?
I think so. What I've been really inspired by during my recent visits to India is how Indian leaders are actually combining those, strong analytical skills that you often hear about that are emphasized in their high school curricula and so on.
The STEM-based.
The STEM-based, with a really deep understanding of human nature, of what motivates people. A lot of that rooted in Indian history, tradition, philosophy, spirituality. And so what I'm just so impressed by is how Indian leaders often combine sort of deep historical philosophical insights with the most recent current sort of technology trends, and I think that positions them very well for this fast-changing world.
So are you saying that chaos breeds competence?
Well, that's another thing, right? I mean, of course, when I say so many leaders have not dealt with this volatility, I'm very much talking about leaders in the West. A lot of Indian leaders, you're telling me that suddenly there's a supply chain disruption, or there's a change in policy, or there's uncertainty. That's my day to day, right?
So don't worry, the lights keep going out.
Listen, and we just keep on going. And so I do think Indian leaders, I'm generalizing here, but they develop a resilience, right, and adaptability that I think serves them well in this current environment.
My final question, a world in turmoil, the way global trade order, supply chains, the way business was done has also been impacted on account of what is happening. So for Indian students and for professionals, what's the most valuable edge a global MBA can provide right now? What can you tell our audience?
I think, we talk about uncertainty, we talk about volatility. It's not about being able to predict what is going to happen next. We need leaders who can lead through those challenges with confidence. People in teams are looking to leaders to say, help me make sense of what is going on. Give me some guidance. And so I think MBA programs like ours that put a big emphasis on leadership development, on team dynamics, they're really equipping folks to mobilize their teams, mobilize their organizations, lead them through this upheaval, even when it's not exactly clear what is going to be on the other side? How do we not get paralyzed? How do we move forward with confidence? I think MBAs still do that well, and ours, I think, does it particularly well.
Viewers, I keep doing conversations with business school leaders on the future of an MBA and business school education, because we also do an annual edition. And today's conversation, David, I have to say, has been a very insightful one. Thank you very much for taking the time out here in sunny Dubai. You were at Davos. That was a different climate, but it's very clear that the world is changing. And in that change, preparing a professional for the future to run his business better, to be a better leader, the value of a business school education is not going away despite the age of AI. David, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Siddharth.
With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. We'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.